This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast transmission.
David Barron was talking about that the Earth is what causes the shadow upon the moon and creates all of these phases of the moon.
Alright guys, welcome back. We're going to talk about this issue regarding somebody who's done a video on me refuting the flat earth video that I did and what I said with respect to it not being flat. And definitely none of my questions regarding this issue have been answered yet, and I just want to say I do appreciate the effort and I do appreciate the time that's been taken by Brother Javi of Last Warning Truth, and we did sit down and we did have a conversation with respect to that, and he has said he's going to give me some answers, but I do want to respond to his ideas in regards to the moon and the earth here, because he says that the earth has cast a shadow on the moon and that's how we get the phases of the moon, but that's not what I said in the video, and it's definitely not what I believe. This video that he's just done is not exactly true, and I'm going to explain what I really believe here, but this has some biblical concepts, and they are definitely biblical concepts that disprove the flat earth as well. Now here's a picture here of the sun's rays as it's cast towards the moon, and so basically the sun can't cast its rays around the moon, and that's why there's a shadow on the backside of the moon. It has nothing to do with the earth casting a shadow on the moon. That's not how you get the different phases of the moon. But as the moon makes its way around the earth in a 29-day cycle, what you'll see is you'll begin to see the light side of the moon. So when it's right in front of the earth, you'll only see the dark side, but when it goes back behind the earth, you'll see the full light side, and that will be a full moon. And basically this is a picture of the 29 and a half days as it goes around the earth. It's going to be in front of the earth when it's dark, and it's going to be behind the earth when it's full, and it's going to be beside the earth when it's a half moon. Here's the moon in front, or almost in front of the sun, and as it's in front of the sun, all you'll see is the dark side of the moon, so you won't see a different phase like a quarter moon or anything like that until it begins to go to the side as it is showing here, and then you'll see the new moon. You'll see it start to light up, and the more it goes, then you get over to the side of the earth and you'll see a half a moon, and that's how the phases work.
Pretend that this is the sun and this is the earth, and then you have another ball here, you have the moon, right? So he says that the earth overshadows the moon. It stands in between the moon and the sun, causing the the phases of the moon.
Again, no, that's not what I taught, and I don't know anybody who's ever taught that, but I do understand that a lot of flat earthers have ideas with respect to what people teach, but for the most part, most of the flat earthers do not understand what's even taught in science or anything like that, and that's why they try to explain a lot of these things away, but they can't. Now here's a picture that basically explains it again. The sun always lights up half of the moon and half of the earth at the same time. Now as the moon is in front of the earth, what you're going to see is the dark side of the moon from planet Earth. And then as it begins to make its way around, you'll see down below the waxing crescent, then the first quarter, the waxing gibbous, and then finally behind the Earth, you'll see the full moon because you'll see the full light of the moon. And then the waning gibbous, the last quarter, and this is basically your 29 and a half to 30-day cycle as it travels around the Earth every month. And that's how the phases come, nothing to do with the Earth casting a shadow on the moon. Now regarding the shadow of the earth coming over the moon, I did speak about that, but I didn't speak about that as causing the phases. I spoke about it as causing what would be called the lunar eclipse, and I will talk about that as we go because that's very important to this subject. But what you will notice over the moon is you'll notice a curve, and that is the shadow of the earth passing over the moon, and we'll come back to this as we continue.
Have you ever gone outside of your house when it's daylight and the sun is still up? Pay attention. The sun is still up in the sky, and so is the moon. Both at the same time. If the moon and the sun are both at the same time up in the sky, there's no way there could be phases because the earth is not in the way. They're both up in the sky. You got to look up to see them.
Okay, Brother Javi, you did tell me you had a bunch of NASA pictures and you understood how the Earth and the moon and everything worked, and that you were very well informed with respect to how this all worked. But I don't believe that you ever were, because what you're saying is that I taught that the Earth was actually what cast the shadow on the moon. And that's never been what anybody's ever taught that I know. And you can see the moon at the same time as you can see the sun in the sky. Again, these people can see the moon both in daylight and night sky on this side of the earth. They will see it in the daylight. That's the way it's going to be, because the moon is sometimes in the direction of the sun, and you're going to see the sun and the moon in the sky at the same time. But with respect to the flat earth, you'll definitely notice that the moon is never in the sunlight on the flat earth model, which is something that you need to explain to me. How does this work? Right? And also, another issue that we have is that some people are teaching, like yourself, that the moon is just a spotlight of some sort or some kind of glass. It's not a real sphere, but it's rather just some projection or some kind of light in the sky. Not everybody in the flat earth movement believes this. Here's Flat Earth Dave.
Shape. It would
I don't think the
distort.
moon is a flat disc at all.
And the reason that he says this is because, as it says, it will distort in the sky. It's not going to look right. It will look oval to some people from a distance. Some people have tried to do a science experiment where they put it on their ceiling and then they show, look, see, you can see it on a flat ceiling. And that's how the moon looks. It just looks round from the ceiling. But the reality is that if you moved about 20 feet back, it would look oval on the ceiling. It would not look like a round ball. And that's going to be a problem. But Flat Earth Dave also has a problem, because as you move around a ball, what you'll see is you'll see the dark side of the ball. And it would be, if it's reflecting the light of the sun, then you're going to have a problem, because you're going to see both sides of the moon at the same time. You're going to see all the phases of the moon as you travel around the ball, if it is a ball. So you got big problems, and that's why a lot of people don't say it's a ball who are flat earthers. That's why a lot of flat earthers are trying to say it's just a disc that lights up as it wills and it doesn't reflect the light of the sun. You're going to have an oval disc in the sky, and it won't look right from certain distances across the earth. That's going to be a major problem if you believe the moon is flat. Now, if you take a look at this video, as the moon is traveling across the sky here, it's the same size in the sky, and it is not going oval as it travels across the sky. Now, most flat earthers teach that the moon is about 3,000 miles high in the sky. And so if it was 3,000 miles high and you were to just be across 3,000 miles, then it would be about 4,242 miles high if you were to do some trigonometry. But that's a problem, because there's going to be some issues. You'll notice there's two balls here, and if one ball is 30 centimeters away and the other ball is 42 centimeters away, which would be the scale on that, then you'd have a major issue, because you'll start to notice that the 42 centimeter away ball is going to be smaller than the 30 centimeter away ball. And that's not how it works. That's not reality. That's not what we observe in the sky. Another thing to consider is the following. This picture here demonstrates one person in the middle who's facing one person, and his back is towards the other person, and he asks, you both can see my face, right? Obviously, the person behind him cannot see his face at the same time as the other person can see his face. When you consider the flat earth, again, there's going to be people seeing the face, and then there's going to be people behind the ball. That would be the way that it would work on a flat earth. If it was close, then you'd be seeing a different face. Notice the following here. You can see in this picture that even from South America to North America, the people on one side would see one face, while the people in North America would see the other face. That's not reality. Again, that's not what it really looks like in the sky. Not only that, but just consider we put a man over on the far side, way across from the moon, where the South Pole apparently is, and he's looking at the moon. Now, when this moon is at its furthest point, you'll notice that there's about a 15-degree angle to the moon, and if it's 15 degrees high, if it's 3,000 miles, then you're going to be able to see the moon not just from North America, South America, Africa, or wherever, but you're going to be able to see the moon from the other side of the earth. This again creates major problems for the flat earthers if it's 3,000 miles high. How does it descend below the horizon? Because that's reality. It really does descend below the horizon. For some reason, flat earthers tell me that the moon is going to descend below the horizon on a flat earth. I don't believe many flat earthers have actually analyzed or investigated their model at all. They do try to disprove a round earth, but they don't try to talk about the flat earth. A couple other things I want to share with you about the moon, because there are several biblical implications here. Also, you'll notice that in regards to the rest of the world, everybody sees the moon, and the moon looks the same size to everybody around the world. It doesn't matter whether you're in Africa or North America or Russia or Australia. The moon is always the same size in the sky.
Stop for a minute. Really, be honest to yourself. I don't know how old you are. I mean, you could be 10, you could be 20, you could be 30, you could be 50. But most people have gone outside on just a regular day and they've seen the moon and the sun both at the same time in the sky. And if that is the case, which it is, it's reality, it's what we see. There's no way that the earth is the one overcasting the shadow and making the phases. It's impossible. Impossible. Because the earth is not a ball. Impossible. It's impossible, brothers and sisters. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make a joke. I'm just, no pun intended here. I'm just telling you how it is. It's impossible.
Okay, I do love Brother Avi. He does have a sense of humor, and that is kind of funny. I do appreciate that. But with respect to his impossible seeing the moon and the sun in the same sky, obviously we've already shown that his idea that the earth lays a shadow on the moon and this is how we get the phases, that's not something that I said. So yes, that would be impossible, and I would agree with that if that were what I believed. That's not what I believe, so it doesn't matter, right? Remember, these people can see the moon both in daylight and in night sky, and they can see the sun at the same time. So that's possible. It is possible. And I hate to burst your bubble. No pun intended there, brother.
The eclipses. So the earth is the one causing the eclipse or the shadow of the moon and this and that and the other. Okay, here's the thing. There's no way that the eclipse is being caused by the moon if both the moon and the sun are both at the same time in the sky. There's no way that either of them are causing the eclipse.
I really think that you should look into how things work before trying to explain why it's impossible or whatever you're trying to say, because you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about, so you can't explain something that you don't know what you're talking about. You might know a bunch of conspiracies like NASA and not landing on the moon and all this other stuff and CIA and everything and Jesuits, all that other stuff. That doesn't matter, because all that is conspiracies. All it is, it doesn't prove the shape of the earth. None of it proves the shape of the earth. What we can look at is we can observe the stars, we can observe the sky, we can observe the moon, we can observe all these things, and we can learn how things work. Now, with respect to the shadow that does cover the moon, that happens once in a while. It's called a lunar eclipse. And I do want to explain this because, yes, that is a shadow that goes over the moon. That has nothing to do with the phases. That has to do with a lunar eclipse. And that's totally different.
Are you sure that you cannot see the sun and the moon at the same time when there's an eclipse? Are you absolutely sure? Because if you are, I'm about to debunk you.
Okay, brother. Again, I really do appreciate you. Anyways, with respect to the not seeing the moon and the sun at the same time, I've already shown you that you can. And with respect to seeing the sun and the moon at the same time with an eclipse, yes, an eclipse, a solar eclipse, totally different than the lunar eclipse. The moon is in the sky at the same time as the sun. And sometimes, once in a while, it will cross directly across the path of the sun. And this is what we get is a solar eclipse. And you can kind of see this in a picture here where the sun is passing over the moon. This is not a 2-scale picture, just so you know. As the moon passes over the sun's path, that would be what is called a solar eclipse, and that happens in the daytime because the sun is out. That happens in the daytime. So, brother, with regards to debunking, you haven't debunked anything yet, and that's what I do appreciate your time that you're taking, but honestly, if you're going to convince people like me who understand some of these things and know how things work, you need to know how things work as well. You need to know at least a little bit with regards to the science that you're talking about if you're going to talk about any of it at all. Because otherwise you just sound like the rest of the flat earth priests that are out there preaching about how the earth is flat, and they know absolutely nothing about how things work or how science works or how the moon works or sun works or anything like that. See, again, let me show you a picture here. This is what you can predict. You can predict when the moon is going to pass directly and exactly where you could be and what parallel you would be and how much of a solar eclipse you're going to see on what day and what time and where exactly you could be standing to see the whole thing. And there's certain percentages you'll see. That's all predictable because we know how the moon and the sun travel in the sky. How do you predict this on a flat earth? The flat earth gives you none of these predictions. The flat earth doesn't help anybody predict anything. See, if a flat earth was true, this is what would happen regarding a lunar eclipse, is that the flat earth would pass over the moon. But there is no flat earth that ever passes over the moon because the earth isn't flat. But there is a round earth eclipse, and that is when the earth passes in between the sun and the moon. And when this happens, you can see the curve of the earth. Again, this happens only in the nighttime when the moon is at its furthest point, because you'll see the full moon, which is at the back of the earth, and you're only going to see this in the nighttime because the full moon is only visible mostly at nighttime or just about sunset. And that's only going to happen on a full moon when the earth is directly between the sun and the moon and you see the full light of the moon. And then you're going to see a lunar eclipse, and there's no explanation for that from a flat earther. In fact, it totally disproves the flat earth when you think about it, because you can see the shadow of the earth as it goes over the moon. And this is kind of a picture that's drawn together, but this is a picture of the earth. The earth is round, and that's when you see the shadow of the earth crossing over the moon. That's not how you get your phases though, again. Now here's a video showing how the earth passes over the moon. And I know a lot of flat earthers will try to explain this away. They'll try to tell you that it's actually just some object that's passing over it, and they don't know what the object is. But it's obvious that the sun, moon, and earth are in direct alignment. And so the sun is on the opposite side of the earth. Most people can realize that because they live on the opposite side of the earth. And what they'll see is that the moon is on the opposite side of the sun. And so in certain places, once in a while, you will get a complete eclipse of the moon as the earth and moon come in direct and total alignment with the sun. So again, these things are all explainable on Around Earth, and every question that you've had has been answered. So now I'm going to be the one asking questions at the end of this video, and I still haven't got any answers. I've gotten some speculative theories, but I don't got answers, and I want answers in regards to these things, because I believe that I know the truth. I'm not teaching speculation here. But again, notice the following picture here. Is it possible that the sun can pass over the moon at the same time? Is that what you would explain as a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse? How do you get your solar eclipse and your lunar eclipse? That is something that needs to be explained with respect to the flat earth. You see, you've got some major problems, and you're trying to make fun of what other people believe, but the reality is that they're making a lot of fun of you right now. Because again, every model that you guys have ever shown never shows what a lunar or solar eclipse is. It doesn't even show the moon out in the daylight at the same time as the sun is out. So there's some major issues with this doctrine.
Now, he also talked about craters on the moon. Craters on the moon. No, the casting of the shadow, the craters on the moon, and all this stuff. First of all, he's looking at it from a globe person's perspective, right? Oh, that there is craters on the moon. First of all, I believe from the studies that I have done and from the scripture, and go back to video number 1, the scripture says that the Heavenly Father created the two great lights, the one to rule the day, which is the sun, and the one to rule the night, which is the moon. Okay? And I believe that the moon is a light, and it has its own light. And it's more than likely, from what I've studied, from what I've seen, it's a plasma light.
Okay, brother, what I'm going to share with you here now is I'm going to share with you some biblical things that show that absolutely the moon is not its own light, but it reflects the light. And these craters in the moon symbolize something. They symbolize little pockets of darkness, pockets and shadows. And the reason that they have shadows is because the moon is not its own light. And we'll come to this. We'll look at this from the Bible, and we'll see how you're misusing and forcing something into scripture here that is not there. Genesis 1:16 tells us that there is a lesser light to rule the night. Genesis 1:16.
But she talks about her being the lesser light.
Now you're talking about Ellen G. White here, and you're saying that Ellen G. White is a lesser light. Where do you think that word comes from? It comes from Genesis 1:16. It means it's a reflection of the sun. So again, what do we get from the Bible? The lesser light. The Bible talks about the moon being the lesser light. Now let's just keep going here. This is what Ellen White wrote herself. She said, "Little heed is given to the Bible, and the Lord has given a lesser light to lead men and women to the greater light, which is Christ. Christ is the Son of righteousness symbolically." Now I'll show you this in Malachi chapter 4 and how this all works, because she also said that the prophet John was a connecting link between the two dispensations. As God's representative, he stood forth to show the relation of the law and the prophets to the Christian dispensation. He was the lesser light, which was to be followed by a greater. So she didn't just say she was the lesser light, and she also said that John the Baptist was the lesser light as well. But furthermore, she didn't just say John the Baptist, she didn't just say herself, but she also said humanity has in itself no light. Apart from Christ, we are like an unkindled taper like the moon when her face is turned away from the sun. We have not a single ray of brightness to shed into the darkness of the world. But when we turn toward the Son of Righteousness, when we come in touch with Christ, the whole soul is aglow with the brightness of the divine presence. That means that the moon has no light of its own. To say that the moon has a light of its own is to say that we also are a light of our own. And that is not what the Bible is teaching. The Bible symbolized the moon as the church. And the church goes forth, fair as the moon, as it says in the book of Song of Solomon. But regarding John the Baptist was called the lesser light because of this. John 1:6-9. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. So again, he is to come and reflect the light of the greater light, which is Christ. He is the lesser light, and the Son of Righteousness is the greater light, which is mentioned in Malachi chapter 4 too. But I want you just to catch one little thing before we go to book of Malachi, and that has to do with John, because it says in Matthew chapter 11:13, Jesus speaking here, "For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if you will receive it, this is Elijah, which was to come." So basically, John was a symbol of Elijah. And do you know what Elijah is called? He's called the lesser light. Elijah is the lesser light. And this is mentioned in Malachi chapter 4. See, in Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, it says, "Unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise." Very similar to Ellen White, what she said. Humanity has no light in itself. But when it turns to the Son of Righteousness, the whole soul is aglow. And she was quoting this very verse here. But this very verse here is talking about John, a lesser light. And it says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet," in verse 4, which is John. And John did not come to bear witness of his own light. He is not a light of his own. He is reflecting the light of the sun. The moon reflects the light of the sun. That is biblical. And that is what the Bible teaches. The Bible does not teach the flat earth. The Bible does not teach anything like that. The Bible is not teaching that the moon is a light of its own, and that's the only option you have left with your flat earth, is that the moon is a light of its own, because you know full well that if it's a ball and it reflects the light of the sun, that can't work on your flat earth model, and that means your flat earth model falls apart right there. So everything that I've just shared from the Bible here completely destroys the flat earth. But furthermore, you said two great lights, the sun and the moon, so that means the moon is its own light because it's a great light. Well, listen again. The sun and the moon are symbolized by Christ, the Son of Righteousness, and Elijah or John, the lesser light, the moon. Two great lights, sun and the moon, and one bears witness of the other's light. One reflects the light of the other. Now again, let me just bring you back to two great lights, because I really want to bring this point home, because you're totally forcing your view into the Bible. You're totally forcing something that isn't there. There are two great lights in this world. There is the sun and the moon, and those are symbolic of you. In fact, it says in John 9:5, "As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." In Matthew 5:14, it says, "You are the light of the world." So how does that work? Well, there's two great lights here. One does not have its own light. You see, Lucifer was called light bearer. He was one who thought he had his own light, and he ended up getting kicked out of heaven for that teaching. And if you keep teaching something like this, you will end up not inheriting the kingdom of God, because that is not what the Bible teaches. The Bible has these symbols in it. If you study your Bible carefully, you won't get caught up with theories like the flat earth. You see, Ellen White even said this, being a lesser light, she said that the world keeps up its continual march around the sun. The hand of infinite power is perpetually at work guiding this planet. It is God's power momentarily exercised that keeps it in position in its rotations. That's from Ellen White, and that is telling us that the earth rotates. It spins around, and not only that, but it goes around the sun. And it takes 365 days to go around the sun. It continues its march around the sun. And you can tell this by looking up in the sky and noticing all the celestial bodies as they move through the sky. You can tell as they move behind the sun in one part of the year, and they move in front of the earth on the other part of the year, on the opposite side. This is what you can observe if you actually learned how the sky works. But if you're trying to teach something so simple as this, like the moon is its own light, then it's going to be hard for you to understand the stars and how they work and how the constellations work and how the sun and earth move through different constellations at different parts of the years. And of course, you're not going to believe what the lesser light actually had to say, but instead you're going to pick and choose out of her words, and you're probably going to use them like a buffet. But anyways, in regards to this, she said regarding the earth is round or flat, she said, let those who are presenting theories as to whether the earth is round or flat leave this question, for God has not given it to them to solve. Non-essential questions will be brought in by those who do not purify their souls by obeying the truth. So what did she say about the flat earth? Leave the question. It's a non-essential question. And she said it would be brought in by those who are not purifying their souls by obeying the truth. Do you think that now souls who are obeying the truth through God are going to bring in the flat earth? Do you think it's all changed? That back in her day, it was Satan bringing in a bunch of people who were not purifying their souls with truth, forcing this into the Bible and pushing it onto people. And now suddenly it's God using purified men to do so. And of course, many who begin to study these things are going to do so. They're going to reject the spirit of prophecy, which I have an issue with, because I really believe that Ellen White was a prophet and she was given great light, and she was a lesser light, and she was a reflection of the Son of Righteousness. And many people are picking and choosing. I do see that you're using her writings still, but I do understand that your eventual conclusion will be that she was wrong in this, wrong in that, wrong in a whole bunch of other things, and that's going to be the moves that you make as you continue to teach these things. But before I leave here, I do really appreciate the time that you've taken to answer some of my questions, to come together with me. I do believe that you are searching for God's truth, and I'm not judging your motives. I'm not against you in any way. I'm all for you. But I am against this teaching because I do believe that it undermines the spirit of prophecy, it undermines the Bible, and it also undermines God's calendar if you study it carefully. But with respect to the flat earth, I have left 3 challenges, and if you can answer these, which I don't want speculative theories. I don't want maybe it could work like this. I don't want anything like that. I want proof. I want to see your model work. I want to see it work. If it doesn't work, then throw it away. Stop trying to force it on the Bible. And I'm going to go over all the verses with respect to the flat earth for anybody who's been deceived by it, and I'm going to show that they are all used out of context, like 4 corners of the earth and other things like that. I'm going to go over all these verses, and I'm going to prove that the flat earth is not taught in the Bible. And don't try to push it on the Bible, because you're forcing something on the Bible that is not reality. And when people see reality, they're going to say, wow, okay. So they're going to look at the Bible as if it's a flat earth book, and then they're going to reject the Bible. And for the most part, that's exactly what I said this was to push the Bible out to be a disinformation book so they can eventually censor it as hate speech and other things like that. But anyways, with respect to my 3 challenges before I go, and number 1 is show me on your model how there is light in South America and Australia 70% of the day, while it is nighttime 24 hours a day in Point Barrow, Alaska in the winter. How does that work on your model? Again, look at the picture and consider this. There has to be light in South America and Australia, and then no light in Point Barrow, Alaska. You've got your light, which is your little sun that's going to shine, and it can shine all the way to South America from where it is, but it can't shine to Point Barrow, Alaska. And this isn't about sunlight thing that you guys might make that shines light around a glass thing. This is about the sun setting and the sun rising. This is about seeing the sun come over the horizon. This isn't about the light. This is about the sun and when it sets and when it goes down and when it comes up. You should be able to see it over the horizon in South America and in Australia at the same time without seeing it in Point Barrow, Alaska. From this point where the sun is here, it should be more visible in Alaska than it should be in South America and Australia, because Point Barrow, Alaska is closer to the little dot that we're using as the sun. Problem 2, make a map with a scale and bring it so we can measure some things. Okay, you guys are teaching that it's 13,000 kilometers from the North Pole to Australia. So if that's true, that makes Australia 9,000 kilometers long. If that's true on your map, if we were to use the scale. And you see, reality is that anybody can drive across Australia with a car, and they can use their GPS, they can use their odometer on their car, and they can tell that Australia is only about 3,687 kilometers. So with regards to your flat earth map, it's 2.5 times reality. We need a map with a scale. Let's answer those two challenges, challenge 1 and challenge 2. Let's not just come up with some idea that tries to say maybe it could be this way without coming up with a real map and a real scale. But challenge number 3, explain to me why the stars spin backwards around the central point in the southern sky and where the southern star is on the flat earth map. And don't just say it's a reflection of the North Star. It's not reflecting into Australia, and people can see these stars. People can know that's not how it works, and know that sounds silly, okay? And I'm going to tell you that right now. And I saw a video from one guy and I said, nope, that's not how it works, because think about your map. South is only one direction on a round earth. You're going to look towards the southern star and everybody is going to be looking the same direction. Now just look at this. Are they going to be looking the same direction if they're on a flat earth? Look carefully and notice. Anybody here know which way south is? Because I'm lost. I would like to know which way south is. I would like to see the map with the scale. This is what I'm going to leave you with, and please don't bring any speculation theories to try to prove it. Bring facts. Bring a real map, bring a real scale, bring a map that shows where the stars are and how they travel around. Show something like that. You can show something like that. Make a stellarium or something like that. That's pretty cool. And show how that works on a flat earth map. That doesn't work on a flat earth. But anyways, notice this, okay? Ellen White said, walk firmly, decidedly, your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. You may be sure that pure and undefiled religion is not a sensational religion. God has not laid upon anyone the burden of encouraging an appetite for speculative doctrines and theories. My brethren, keep these things out of your teaching. Do not allow them to enter into your experience. Let not your life work be marred by them. Speculative theories don't matter with respect to the truth. We want the truth, and we want facts. And because NASA didn't land on the moon, that doesn't prove a flat earth. Those are speculative theories, okay? Those are not facts. And I understand that people are caught up with these theories and they believe that these things prove that somebody's lying about the moon, even though they can't know anything with regards to the facts about why the moon would travel this way or that way, or why it wouldn't be round, or why it's a flat disc, or why it's got light shining from it, how it reflects, or anything like that. It's all speculative theories. Those are all speculation theories. They are sensational religion, and they are not the truth. And we need to avoid them like the plague. We want to get those out of our religion. Let's prove all things. Let's hold fast that which is good. Let's go over the verses. We'll check the verses to see if they prove a flat earth. And if they don't, if we're trying to force something into it, let's stop doing it. Let's really stop doing it so that we don't force something on the Bible that isn't in the Bible. And I've seen people say, oh, well, you just don't believe the Bible because you don't believe it teaches a flat earth. That's not true at all. I believe every word of the Bible. I just believe you're misusing it. You're misrepresenting it, and you're not rightly dividing it at all. And so I'm here to help. I'm not here against you or nothing like that, but I want you to see the truth in regards to these matters. And so anyway, I have lots of time. My doors are open whenever you want to talk or you ever want to come together and study again. I'm open to it. I'm not against you. You know that. Let's get to the point of proving all things. Let's avoid the speculation theories and let's start proving all things. Let's hold fast that which is good together. Let's stand on the platform together and let's be all for one another, and let's go forth with the pure gospel of truth and preach it. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. And I thank you to the flat earthers as well. Even though we might not agree, I'm not against you. I'm all for you. But I definitely am not all for this teaching being forced on the Bible. And I'm against that, or forced on the spirit of prophecy as well, as many are trying to do. But with respect to that, God bless you. God be with you. And may He enlighten you and give you the light on everything. And may you be brought into the truth and be a reflector of that light, just as the moon reflects the sun. God bless you. See you next time.